Alrighty, it's 9:30, so let's get started with the webinar. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today for our webinar called Create a Chat App in 30 Lines of Code. Just for some housekeeping rules, we're going to be taking questions throughout the webinar training. Ian will be here online answering questions throughout, but we will also be saving the last 15 minutes for us to do a little Q&A for them. For some of you that have joined webinars in the past, you guys might know me already. My name is Grace, and I'm the marketing manager at PubNub. I'll also be joined today by Oz, the product manager for PubNub ChatEngine, and Ian Jennings, a software engineer who created it. Guys, you want to take a few minutes to introduce yourself to everyone?
Hey everyone, nice to be talking to you again. Grace and I have been on webinars previously, and as you know, I'm the product manager for functions and ChatEngine too. I'm very excited to talk about ChatEngine with you guys now.
Hey, my name's Ian Jennings, and I'm the creator of ChatEngine. I've been working on it for more than a year, and we released it recently, and we're super excited to tell you about it.
Awesome. So we've got a lot to review, but don't worry so much about taking notes during the presentation. We always send a recording of the presentation to you guys the following day, and it's always on our website as well. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's presentation. As far as our agenda goes, I'll be giving a quick introduction to PubNub before Oz and Ian dive more into PubNub ChatEngine. I'll be highlighting great use cases, and at the end giving a coding demo with a live Q&A. So for some of you guys who are already familiar with PubNub, this will be a little bit of a refresher, but bear with me, guys, as I give you a quick introduction about PubNub. So PubNub can connect any device in the world in under 250 milliseconds. So let me tell you a little bit more about how we're helping developers with real-time innovation. While customers and users are demanding real-time products now, building out required infrastructure for that is very challenging. So some of the things you have to think about. On the security side, the requirements are different than for traditional request response infrastructure. How do you encrypt data without introducing latency? On the reliability side, how do you deliver 5 nines SLAs when you have data centers around the globe? How do you deal with mobile devices that can lose connectivity sporadically? On the scalability side, how do you scale while remaining sensitive to latency, geographic distribution, global synchronization, and ability to handle spikes? Building out this infrastructure by yourself takes time and expertise, which can easily get expensive and detract you from your core competencies, like customer innovation. PubNub can enable application developers to leverage the best real-time technology without having to earn your PhD in real-time infrastructure. As the largest distributed computing network in the world, we are already processing 5 times the amount of data than Twitter, and we're just getting started. With over 2,000 customers and on 330 million unique devices publishing and receiving streams of data, our customers are finding new ways to innovate and monetize these streams. So let me give you a quick overview of PubNub's major features and how it can work within your environment. PubNub takes its core PubSub type low latency bidirectional communications and builds several features on top of that to help developers create all sorts of real-time innovations even faster. It wraps this platform of messaging and related features in a tight layer of security that includes fine-grained access control too. You can also easily integrate PubNub into your larger deployments, whether it's based on-premises or in the cloud on GCP, Azure, or AWS via PubNub's gateways. Here's a couple more details on the major features in PubNub's platforms. The gateways support integrations to the major cloud hosting providers, as well as mobile push integrations to Apple push notification services and Google Cloud Messaging. There's also presence detection, which provides presence and state functionality. It makes it easy to answer the question of who's online and what are they doing. There's also the Box Catalog offering dozens of partner-built open source serverless applets to help you innovate on PubNub more quickly. Stream Controller allows you to receive messaging on multiple channels from a single network connection. This vastly extends your ability to connect to and manage large numbers of streams while keeping bandwidth costs to a minimum. There's storage and playback, also informally referred to as the History API. It enables you to store messages as they're published and retrieve the previously published messages at a later time. Functions provide serverless logic within PubNub's network, so you can apply programming logic to streams of data. PubNub can support all types of real-time use cases, But we see the majority of our successful customer deployments in three areas, which are IoT device control, real-time updates, and finally chat and collaboration. So we're super excited to tell you more about our latest product, ChatEngine, that'll help you build chat in 30 lines of code. From here, I'll let Oz and Ian take it over.
Hi guys. So ChatEngine is an object-oriented and event emitter-based framework for building chat applications in JavaScript. But why ChatEngine? Building chat proved to be a very complex task. And the reason is it's hard to figure out how you host your chatbots and integrate them seamlessly with your chat ecosystem. And another question to answer is how you reliably show message history when your users come online. And another thing is how do you track their online status so you can show that neat online list on the left side of your app, or if it's a one-on-one chat, show each participant that the other party is online or not. Last but not least, how do you reliably and quickly deliver messages globally and produce that real-time experience? And these are hard problems to solve, and we've been solving these problems for a while, so we decided to deliver this in a easy-to-consume way via ChatEngine. ChatEngine delivers. ChatEngine comes with many features, and I only listed the ones that are the most important on this slide, but there are many, many more features that would be impossible to fit all on this slide. And some that I really want to point out are the typing indicators. We made it extremely easy to build typing indicators with ChatEngine. And all it takes is a line, and we will see in a little bit to integrate typing indicators. Message history. This feature requires some infrastructure components and client-side code. Again, with ChatEngine and PubNub, it's a couple lines of code and you have message history. It's almost like magic. The integration of our functions serverless infrastructure for chatbots. Some of you may already know, and Grace just mentioned, we're operating a serverless infrastructure we call functions. It allows you to integrate not only chatbots, but any kind of logic you want to add to your chat ecosystem. Let's say you want to translate messages from one language to the other as they are sent. You can do that with functions, or moderate the room in an automatic fashion. Maybe you want to remove cuss words or any kind of offensive language. It's super easy to do. I'm going to move on to the next slide because I don't want to take all the time talking about features. I want to show you actually what things are, like how you can build very quickly with ChatEngine. And let's talk a little bit about the architecture real quick. On the right side, you can see how the app will be laid out when you build your app with ChatEngine. At the lowest level, you can see the PubNub real-time network. This helps us deliver your messages around the globe at very low latencies, less than 250 milliseconds, and a lot of times around 100 millisecond latency. It's the backbone of your chat ecosystem. On top of that sits the ChatEngine. It gives you, via the SDK, gives you some common chat objects like user and chat, and abstracts away the complexities of actually turning these into network concepts. And it also comes with some plugins. As I mentioned, read receipts is a plugin, message history is a plugin as well. We also provide some skeleton UI components or sample UI components so that you can get started very quickly. And on top of this, which ends up becoming a pretty thin layer at this point, you write your own code and it becomes your full chat app. But the architecture is very open. And it's open both on the client side and the back end. The back end openness comes with PubNub functions. You can write little snippets of JavaScript code to enable great functionality. You can also write plugins for ChatEngine and add new functionality on the client side, the things that you couldn't think of or you're better suited to implement. And without further ado, I'm going to jump into building some chat for you guys. So I'm going to be using the CodePen as the place to build and as a place to show you the apps, because I just love CodePen. It's just very easy. So here we have a simple UI to get us started, because it would be boring to build UI in the webinar, and I'll show you how much we have really. Small body, a div to actually contain the whole thing, and a text box, message list in a templatized fashion. We're using handlebar templates, but it would be very easy to just bring in any other template engine. We have a little bit of CSS just to make it look a little prettier, and then now we have the chat engine code. So this is written in plain JavaScript, just so that we can all easily follow. And you may have already figured out the first line is the instantiation for chat engine. I'm including my personal keys over here. I mean, feel free to copy and use these as well. It's just that I rotate these keys, so keep that in mind. And I'm going to share the URL for this one. Apologies, actually, for I'm going to share the URL in the chat section if you want to just click on it and then follow along at your own pace. So yeah, as we mentioned, the second line rather creates an instance of chat engine. Just like any object-oriented framework, you start by doing that. And we have a little helper function here that generates us a user, a person. And this is basically a JSON object that has a couple fields. You can take a look at this code if you'd like as well, but it's not very relevant, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Oh, some of you guys are getting on the chat. That's cool. And then we initialize a couple variables, just my chat variable, just to store our chat object. In chat engine, rooms and channels are in chat engine we call chat rooms chats. So you could be creating a chat to talk to one person, which would be a private chat, or you could be creating a chat and invite many users, which is analogous to a room. Over here, we initialize our template. This is going to help us render the HTML. Again, it's kind of peripheral. So, oh, some of you guys are trying to do some phishing, huh? In JavaScript alert. Good try and good test. I guess we succeeded. So let's talk about our init code. The first thing you do after you instantiate chat engine is tell the chat engine to connect. Let's remember this is client-side code. So what you provide here is a unique identifier for the user and the person object we just created. The purpose of this person object is to communicate a profile information, if you will, with all the other participants in the chat. Sorry, I couldn't help but laugh at the script tag. Yeah, script tags, we don't parse them either. But you know, thank you for actually testing these and showing everyone that chat engine, our implementation is secure. To follow on, after you call the connect function, this is an asynchronous call, so you have to register for a callback and listen for the ready events. And here, this is the line we're doing that. And when the chat engine instance receives a ready event, it will be executing this function. And what we do here is just very simply create a chat and then use the variable that we initialized up here. And then we call our chat the chat engine demo chat. The next thing we do is start listening messages on that chat. This is basically joining a room in chat terms. So we start listening for event types of message, and for every message we receive, we execute this little block and call render message. and it's actually in action right now. As you guys are typing, we are receiving these message events, and my browser calls render message, and it shows up on my screen. And last but not least, we want to bind a send event so that when I type a message here and hit enter, it's actually sent to the network, and you guys can all see it. So this is basically it for bare bones chat. There's a helper function here. It's doing the send message part, and what it does is actually emitting an event of message type and a JSON object. So which is the chat message that is provided that is actually communicated to all of you guys through the network. Someone's asking how it is generating random usernames. I don't want to get into it, but if you click assets, oh, not that one actually. We're actually including a JavaScript file here, and you can just go see that the generate person it just randomly picks out of a list of names. So it's really nothing complicated or magical. Feel free to take a look yourself, but I wouldn't waste time on that right now. So, and the other helper message here is a render message. Like I mentioned earlier, it just takes a message and adds it to the UI. This is purely UI code. It really has nothing to do with ChatEngine. And then a couple other helper functions, which allows us to scroll to the bottom when we get a new message, and to get the current time, to display the time of the message on the UI. So just to recap, how few lines of code we actually had to write to get this to work. We connect with a person object and a unique identifier, which is the first parameter, and then the person object, which is the second parameter. And then we start listening for the ready event. When ChatEngine connects, it fires this ready event, and we provide a callback function, which is the part that I highlighted. And in the callback function, now that we know that we're connected, we create a new chat called ChatEngine demo chat, and then start listening for messages on this chat. And for every message we receive, we call our render message function, which displays the message that was received on our user interface. And the helper function allows us to send the message. It's the emit function, emitting an object of an event of message type as this object. So basically, like all the ChatEngine code you have here is about 15 lines of code perhaps, and we have bare bones chat working. In fact, you guys are on it, and we're all chatting now. So now I want to make it a bit more interesting by adding online status and show you guys how easy it is to do that. So for online presence, the online user list that you see on the left side, we need to add some more UI components, and then these are a couple other handlebars templates. The people template, me template, and user template are doing that.
Hey Oz, can you change your background theme to light? One of the attendees is on a projector, and they're having a hard time seeing the.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah.
You can do that by clicking. It's not over there. It's actually under your avatar, and then go to settings.
Under the avatar.
Yeah. So the green with the white dots.
Oh, okay, got it.
And click settings on the bottom. Yeah, there you go. And then try to just choose a light theme.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks for letting me know, and yeah, thanks for speaking up about that, guys. Because we want you to be able to follow that. And
then where you left off, I think you were explaining the handlebar templates.
Yes. So this is pretty bright. Does it work for everyone? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So the handlebar templates are there to help us with the. Actually, I'm just gonna reload this one. Okay. Cool. Because I think the cookies took effect and it changed the theme, but it didn't really reload the app and reconnect. Okay. Cool. So it's still the same chat, by the way. All we're doing is adding the online user list on the left side. Like I mentioned, the handlebar templates are purely for that. It's not really in regards to building chat. You don't have to worry about that. You might have a better way of doing that than this, but for simplicity purposes, we used handlebar templates. So again, the same code is here. We connect, we start listening on ready events. Differently than last time, what we do here is we parse the incoming data object and then get the me object out of that. The reason for this is now that it's at point 2, we want to render the messages that we type differently. And let me give you an example of that. As you can see, now it's kind of like a smartphone text messaging style, bubbles left and right. And hey, Kelly, how to send files? Let's talk about that in the end, perhaps. I think that's a good question.
Yeah, guys. Of course, I know we have this awesome chat engine, but feel free to ask your questions in the questions box on the GoToWebinar control panel. We'll be sure to answer those at the end. I want to make sure Oz has time to go through the demo for everyone else here watching. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, the questions here might actually get lost because I'm going to move on to a third screen in a second. So what happens here is I'm going to highlight the new lines that are added on this one, and it's just the 6 lines I just highlighted. And this gives us the online user list. Let me walk you through those now. So we already know that we registered some callbacks to listen for events on the My Chat object, which lets us know about the things that are happening in our chat room. And the event we want to listen to when we're tracking online user list is all the events under the system event online. So let me give you actually a bit more detail. All the events that starts with $1 are system events. $.online is a group of events that include connect, disconnect, and a couple other events. And when we use the wildcard notation, we're listening for all the events in regards to users coming online. And in response to that, what we do is, the online event actually gives us a data object, which brings the user object. Remember the little person object we passed in the beginning? That's what we get when we parse this data object, and all we do is append it to this list, and now we have an online list. And oh wow, a lot of guys are online over here. That's awesome. And the second piece to this is tracking when people go offline. Similarly, we listen the whole family of events under offline, and all we do is find the user that just went offline and remove that. Oh wow, someone discovered being able to print empty messages. Interesting. Cool. So that's really it for building an online offline online user list, and it's basically just these 6 lines. And then now I'm going to move on to showing you the third version of this demo. I guess I'm going to have to maybe actually just reload. It should. Yes. Okay. Cool. Everyone can see it. Light theme, right? Ian.
Yep. Yeah, they like it.
Cool. Awesome. So It was all great. You know, we built a bare bones chat, and then we added online presence tracking. Now we have an online list on the left side. But you can't really have a chat unless you have message history. And as you can see, this chat now holds all the history. And how we do this is just by adding a couple other lines. And here's the block that gives us this feature. And what happens here is that now we're also listening to another event called connected. And the callback we registered for this event. So some of you may not be familiar with this notation. It's the ES6 arrow notation, as they call it. So this is essentially a function definition. Actually, it ends here. Yeah, this is a function definition, and so it takes no arguments. And this is the function body. It's pretty cool notation. If you haven't seen before, I suggest you look it up. And so what we do here is ask the chat object, the my chat, to give us the last 15 messages. And for each message that we get, we render it immediately, and that forms our history. There's a slight difference here in the way we call the render message. Some of you may have noticed. You provide an extra parameter, and it's a Boolean value set to true. What it does is, in the case, so it's called it's history. Let me just walk you through the difference here. If it's history, we do a prepend instead of an append, and you may have already figured out when you append, you add your messages to the bottom of this message list, and whereas when you do prepend, they're added at the top in the right order. So let's go back to the piece that gets us the message history. You call the search, and then you start listening for events on the search object that it returned. For every message object, you call the render message again, and then you have message history. Now, and to show you guys what a message history is, in more concrete terms, I'm just going to reload, and it should have actually reloaded with no messages, but as you can see, all the messages are there from like a minute ago, and that's the end of our demo. But before we move on to Q&A, actually, Ian, would you like to add anything, change anything? Did I leave anything out? Explain anything better, maybe?
I think that you've done a pretty good job. I've got I'm overloaded with questions right now.
Oh, okay, all right.
Q&A, so I'm just rapid firing them. I can go over some of those questions if you'd like, or do you have something else that you'd like to finish on?
Yeah, no, this is really all I had to cover, and yeah, we can start with questions. I have a couple questions that I thought would be very interesting, but you know, I'll insert them in between. Let's start with the questions that you received.
Sure. So let me let's see, pick a few out here. All right. So can you turn it into not dark mode? Yeah. Okay, we did that one. Let's see. So a lot of people wanted links to the chat app and the docs and all that stuff, and I assume that we'll send out an email or something afterward that'll kind of summarize the webinar.
So by the way, as a refresher, after every webinar, we always send the presentation and the key links from the contents of the webinar. So expect to see both the presentation recording and the links that Oz used within 24 hours.
Cool. And a couple of people asked about the syntax and promises and things like that. So it's worth going over that. ChatEngine is event emitter based, which does not actually directly rely on promises in most cases. If you saw in Oz's history example, that was a section where it was based on promises. But yeah, this will work with any modern ES6 or any modern JavaScript package, and it can work with promises, but it is not entirely promise-based. Let's see. Another person asked, how do I use chat for multiple tenants? So this is in the example where you have, maybe you're making like something like Slack or HipChat, and you have, multiple organizations, and you don't want them to collide with each other. You kind of want to have them be, you want to make a chat app for other orgs. And the way you can do that is by supplying a different configuration parameter in the initialization. It's called a global channel. And what that does is it makes everything you do in ChatEngine a child of the global channel, and that way everything is scoped to that. And in a multi-tenant architecture, you would give every tenant their own global channel, and then they would have their own sort of realm, their own environment, and nothing would overlap between them. That's a more advanced use case, and you can get in touch with us if you are thinking about implementing that. Let's see.
I think I have a question. I thought that was pretty good. How do you encrypt data on your side? So maybe talk about a little bit more of the overall security component of it, about PubNub within ChatEngine.
Yeah, PubNub supports AES encryption, and it also supports permission-based access management. ChatEngine at the moment leaves a lot of that up to you to fill in. So what we do is we give you all the ability to secure your chat, and it's up to you to decide who can invite other users and who's an administrator and things like that. As we continue to work on the project, we'll have a lot more examples and some pre-made code for you. But in terms of security, what we're planning to do is have messages be encrypted so no one can read one another's. We have permission management, so you can't go into another channel and read and see messages. We'll have identity verification, so you can't pretend to be somebody else. And again, these things are not existing in the app right now, but they are on the roadmap.
And I think the question was also like specifically asking if we encrypt data on our side. We currently, in the way Ian just described, we currently do not encrypt, but it's very easy to actually encrypt data, encrypt this communication end-to-end with PubNub. All you have to do is really provide a cipher key, and it's encrypted throughout, like end-to-end. And yeah, it's extremely simple.
I had a question about what's included with the basic UI components. Are they vanilla.js or are they based around a framework? We've done a ton of work to support multiple different frameworks. So the ones that Oz just demoed actually weren't pre-made at all. They were just some, they're just vanilla JavaScript handlebar templates. But we actually do offer pre-made UI components for React Native, and so, I've made some for Angular, I believe, as well. So ChatEngine works not just with vanilla.js, but with all the modern JavaScript frameworks like Angular, React, jQuery, and React Native. And we've created a bunch of resources and examples for all those platforms. So you can find those in the examples repository, and we can provide you with a link with that after the webinar. All right. Can we design the layout of the chat application? Yeah, you absolutely can. As I just mentioned, ChatEngine does not lock you into any UI decisions. We provide you with examples that fill out most of what we think you're going to do, but we don't actually, we don't lock you into any UI sort of decision. Our opinion as the framework is to provide you with everything all the way up into the UI, and then give you the UI, and you can change it if you want. I see a couple more questions about that. All the chats are showing in one window. Is there a way you can isolate the chats? So Oz gave a pretty simple one chat example, but ChatEngine uses object-oriented practice to allow you to make multiple chats. So in the way that Oz said new chat and then rendered it, you can actually make that into a function and just click a button and make 10 chats if you want. So for example, if you were to build something like Slack where you want to click on a username and start a new chat, that's absolutely something you can do. And we have some examples that show that.
You want me to
Yeah.
say that line real quick, actually, to illustrate it better? So, yeah, Ian was just talking about, let's go to the line.
Yeah, there you go.
Just this line. So you basically would have to call it with a different parameter, ChatEngine demo chat, some private chat, my personal chat with my friend, and you have the 3 different chat rooms.
Exactly.
So a couple of people are also asking about the pricing plan around, like how does a message count work for chat? How does it scale? Do you have any insights into that?
So the pricing is actually the same as PubNub pricing right now. So it's basically up to 20,000 devices. It's a device. There are device-based plans, and past the 20,000 device point, it becomes our enterprise plan. And I would recommend that you talk to sales about that one.
Yeah. So that's basically message transaction based. But again, for any of you guys who are already existing PubNub customers or are interested in working on with ChatEngine in any way, please feel to reach out to myself, to Ian, or Oz, and we're happy to connect you with our internal resources. You know, there's a lot of interesting potential use cases coming out of this already, and we'd love to help you get started the right way. So don't hesitate to contact us. Our emails are on the bottom and on the beginning of the webinar presentation. But it's just simply our first name at pubnub.com.
So there are a lot of questions. I saw 2 that are kind of related. One of them is how can ChatEngine be used with blocks or cloud functions? And the other one was PubNub plus chatbots. I wasn't going to pass up on that. Thank you for asking these questions. Yeah, Robert and Almal. So I grouped the 2 questions together because they're very similar. Yes, ChatEngine can be used with blocks or cloud functions. I believe you're referring to PubNub functions, and all you have to do is create a function, and for the channel name to act on, you have to provide the channel name that ChatEngine produces. We've documented the channel topology in our docs, and it'll be pretty easy. And if you actually add a global channel name, it'll be prefixed by that channel name. It's very easy to actually integrate them with blocks and functions. And the other question was the chatbot question. It's very similar. When you integrate functions with ChatEngine, you essentially have a chatbot in your ecosystem, because PubNub functions listen to each and every chat that you ask them to, because you provide a channel or a channel pattern, and you can put in the code that, for instance, listens for questions like what's the weather like today, and it'll parse out that question, make a call outside to get the weather report for today, and then publish it back to the chat that it was asked. That's one example. You can imagine, you can come up with many things, to many different examples. It's a general purpose JavaScript runtime, so the possibilities are endless, really. Ian, I give the mic back to you if you wanna pick some other important question you think.
Oh, Ian, how
Yes.
scalable is the engine?
Yeah, so we've actually done a ton of work to make it scalable. You can have up to 1,000 or 2,000 chats locally that you're subscribed to. So if you imagine something like Facebook Messenger, where you're getting notifications on all those chats at once, that's something that you could implement with ChatEngine. The memory usage of a chat is not very high at all. We've tested it, and yeah, you can really just make hundreds before you start seeing any sort of degradation in performance. Let's see. Is this chat app specifically written to your messaging infrastructure? Yes, it is. It works with PubNub exclusively. So you get all of the benefits of the global infrastructure network and our reliability. It is based on PubNub, and in that fact, like I was just mentioning, you can hook it into the other PubNub products and use the core PubNub functionality. And you're not just limited to ChatEngine. ChatEngine is basically like another PubNub SDK. It's just made specifically for one vertical, and we're doing we're making it, doing a ton of stuff for it, making a bunch of plugins and examples and things.
I have two questions that I'm going to group again. Somebody asked, is that possible to download history? And then another question about history was if we store the chat messages indefinitely, it's possible to make API calls to actually get the chat history. I don't think we have a way of like downloading them right now, like export as CSV or something like that. But you can make API calls, and you can ask for more than 50 messages. And by way of API calls, you can also page all the way back and persist it on your end. It would be basically like making your curl call and piping it to a file. If that's too low level, it'd be making an HTTP request and then parsing the contents and storing wherever you want. And no, we do not. We don't have a policy for like retaining the message history indefinitely. In fact, we have an API call that allows you to delete any message you want. If you have specific compliance requirements, it'd be good to actually talk to us, in more detail about that one. We'd like to help you with the best way possible. But before I wrap it up, we have customers with very stringent data retention policies, and we're pretty good at complying with those policies.
Oz, can you bring up the documentation, specifically the plugins?
Sure.
So somebody asked what type of plugins can be created and what exists. So the way that I subscribe to messages, you saw you said .on message, render message. What the plugins do is subscribe to the same events, and they edit the messages before they hit the SDK. That allows you to do things like add a typing indicator, because when someone starts typing, and so we start showing a notification for that. What Oz has on screen right now is a plugin for desktop notifications. So what this does is every time a message gets sent to a chat room that you attach the plugin to, it'll send a web-based desktop notification using the desktop notification API available in Chrome and Firefox and some other browsers. And so what happens is you just run this plugin, you require the code, you attach it into the chat, and then you send a configuration object, and the plugin does the rest. So every time a message gets sent to that chat, it'll send you a desktop notification. And so what else can you do with plugins? Well, you can add avatars to users in much the same way. You attach you attach the plugin to the user, and then the user's email gets turned into an avatar, like a randomly generated image based on the email string. We have parsing for Markdown. So if you send a message that uses Markdown format, something that you find on GitHub, Slack, or Flowdoc, or any one of those competitors, you would see that the Markdown is rendered into HTML automatically. And not to dive into all the other ones so deeply, but we also have the ability to search users who are online in the chat using a list. There's an online list of users, and you can search them and see who's there. You can send a typing indicator to show that somebody is typing or has stopped typing. And you can also keep a count of unread messages that have been received but have not been seen. We have a couple more plugins that are in development, almost ready for release, and we'll continue supporting them and building them in the future. And also, if you want to build your own plugins too, we'll be happy to throw them up on the site. We're really trying to create a participatory kind of thing here where people, our customers can share plugins with each other, and if one person figures something out, we can upload it and share it with other people. Let's see.
Like a couple of people asked about Swift support. We currently do not have support for Swift, and we decided to actually release ChatEngine with React Native, which allows you to integrate ChatEngine in both Android and iOS. And some of you may not know that native iOS applications that you already built with Swift can also have React Native components within, which would be the best way to integrate ChatEngine right now. And we actually did a proof of concept and provided instructions on how to do that in our docs. It's actually right here. And it's pretty easy and quick, and we've tested the performance. We found it to be pretty performant as well. So that's the story of our Swift support. Not yet, but it's possible to integrate with both iOS and Android. We built these apps before we launched.
On that same note, somebody asked if it works in Node.js, and it actually does. And that's I've built a chatbot example that acts as its own. It uses Node.js to sign on. It acts as a user and it responds to messages. So yes, it works in Node.js, and a bit of trivia is that because the reason that it works in React is because it works in Node. So we had to get it to work in Node to have it work in React and React Native. And then someone asked about a pattern in which you have something like intercom, where you have maybe a support chat window that pops up for everybody that visits your site, and then a main dashboard where people can respond. That's definitely something that's possible. It requires a bit of permission tweaking, but that is a pattern that you could create. We're not locking you into any sort of singular chat pattern. It's not, it's not just for one chat room. It's not just for Slack. It's not just for web. It's kind of, it's a very generic chat SDK that works on web, mobile, all different devices, Node.js, and it doesn't lock you down to a single pattern. If you have users and you have chat rooms, then you can do basically anything else that you want with this. Is there anything? Got a lot of questions about push notifications. This is something that I'm not in 100% on. So, Oz, if you can answer that one.
Yeah, sure. So we built a push notification library to work with our ChatEngine component, the React Native components, and we again built an app that actually utilizes push notification library. So yes, we do support push notifications, and we've documented that as well. And also PubNub actually delivers push notifications for you, so it's kind of both the client side and the server side.
That's all the questions I can see.
I see a question about how long likely it would take to have Angular support. Website doesn't show anything right now. We actually have a couple different Angular examples, and it may not have been published on docs yet, but ChatEngine absolutely works with Angular, and we even have an example for that one. We'll make sure to. If you could actually
over the email, we'll send out a link to all the examples.
Yes, exactly. We'll compile that in that email as well. So thanks for bringing that up, Deepak.
So a question that I kind of want to bring up again is what are some of the benefits of using the PubNub network for a chat framework like this?
What is it?
And that's something that Oz, Ian, both of you can answer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, first and foremost, all the features you want to build come all together, and by that I mean, okay, so some of the features that you need for chat, such as message history and online presence, require some backend support. And this is the kind of backend infrastructure that's very hard to maintain and hard to get right. And PubNub already did that years ago. And so it basically...
The 5.9's SLA, the quarter-second latencies, the global replication, that's already integrated into the chat framework itself.
Yeah.
PubNub. So you get all the benefits of having PubNub's robust real-time network that you don't have to scale and maintain on your own if you use chat.
Yeah, and like Grace mentioned, the global replication allows us to actually deliver messages in like sub-quarter second latency, which is like on the order of tens of milliseconds, or like 100 to 250 milliseconds. So that's you actually need that kind of real-time infrastructure to build chat that feels like chat. So Ian, would you like to add?
You guys covered it. Yeah, this ChatEngine is based off of a lot of requests we heard from customers. So a lot of our customers were building chat and they were creating the same patterns over and over again in regards to history, object-oriented, chat patterns where you have chats that spawn more chats and online user lists and all those kind of things. And so what we did was took the existing PubNub product, the existing PubNub JavaScript SDK, and we did a bunch of work that solidifies all those patterns into little modules, just little functions, so that our customers don't have to do all that work again. We don't have to explain and document all this stuff. It's meeting the customer closer to meeting you guys closer to where you want to be with chat. PubNub is very low level and it allows you to do a bunch of cool stuff, like it's really customizable, and then ChatEngine is an abstraction on top that makes it easy for you to make chat if you're going to make chat.
Yeah, so before we end the webinar, I just want to let everyone know that this is available. Again, this presentation is being sent to you, and we're going to be sending out all the documentation for you guys. But I would be really, really grateful if you guys that have stayed on all the way to the end for this could fill out the quick survey at the end. I know we have basically several questions that we'll answer to each of you individually if we haven't reached out, I guess, in this chat now. But if you have any questions, if you'd like to see other use cases, other demos, anything like that, please do feel free to reach out and let us know also in the survey what you thought of the webinar, and if there's any other webinar you'd like to request on your end, we'd be happy to take that into consideration. But I guess that's the end for us today. Thank you so much for joining us again today, and we hope you guys have a great day and look forward to the next webinar with you guys.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Bye, everybody.